Freeman on mine now. Awesome. It's
Okay,
working.
nice. Right on. You know what my rule is? Wait till there's 7 people. No. Man, good to see you, Brent. At your insistence, we're live, so you're so welcome. No,
Hell yeah.
thank you so much for being with me.
No, it's an
Good to
honor,
see you.
man. Like I love you, dude. Like as much
Yeah.
shit as I talk to you on Twitter, it's all out of love.
No,
man.
I know it's so clear as day that it's love and respect and intellectual but human. So you do an amazing job of presenting your point of view, having a clear point of view, and keeping it not emotionless and not purely analytical, because there's so much heart there too. But you just go about it the right way. So it's a pleasure to talk to you. How have you been?
I've been okay, man. It's been a tough time in my industry. You know, I'm in big tech, and it's an industry that's undergoing a lot of changes right now. There's a ton of layoffs. There's a ton of churn. Nobody knows what AI is going to mean in our space, and so it's pretty anxiety provoking time. But I'm hanging in there, man. The other stuff, the working on the obviously the social media stuff, the podcast, the clothing company that I launched, like all that. That's all good. That's all positive. Trying to get out of the tech world and into doing this full time, for better or worse. So a little mixed bag for me.
Well, I love your podcast actually, and
Thank you.
just the whole thing, the artwork, the aesthetic, the content, and you do great work. And the concept of it, aiming up. You know, you're an anarchist, libertarian, leaning guy, freedom, maximalist. I think it's fair to say. And so the concept is, therefore, the accountability is on each individual, right? That's aiming up.
Kind of. I mean, aiming up is really non-political, right? So well, maybe it's sort of political, because I see politics as being downstream from culture. And so I think that if you're going to change the world, you got to change yourself first. So it's about every micro action that we take, every thought, every word, the way we interact with each other, our health, our like everything. You're either aiming a little bit up or a little bit down. It's like a micro type of thing. I don't think anything is like this. Any step we take is not like this maximum, change type of thing. It's like this small drip, and we're either aiming slightly up and getting better over time, or we're aiming down and we're not just impacting ourselves. There's second order effects. If I'm an asshole to Brian online, then he goes home and beats his wife, and then it just keeps on going from there, right?
Right.
So
it's not inherently political. It's more philosophical. It's more of a life approach.
Correct. I am philosophical first and foremost, and then my political position. This is what you probably see me on Twitter. I'm always trying to drive to some key concept which is philosophical. So I use politics oftentimes because I don't think anything's going to change. Like the things that I say, the things I advocate for, I don't think is actually going to move the needle in any sort of macro political scale. I try to use it as like a teaching tool, like because everyone's political, everyone's so dialed into all the stuff that's going on, and I try to point out certain things by virtue of whatever micro political thing pops up. Some issue is going on. If it has to do with the budget, we'll talk about that. If it has to do with monetary policy, I'll talk about that. And it sort of goes back to philosophy at its core. And my philosophy really is about the non-aggression principle, about not initiating force and fraud against your friends and neighbors. Like that's our starting point. And the what sort of springs from that is sort of, it's not individualism necessarily, although respect for individual rights is really important. It's community. It's like the most pro-social behavior that I can think of is not attacking your neighbor, not stealing from them, not initiating violence, not swindling them, right? Like so it's about community as togetherness, but it's not based on politics, because politics, I think, is the antithesis of freedom and individual rights and free market capitalism. These are like two sides of, these are two opposites, I think, two polar opposites.
Yeah, I guess one of the questions that comes to mind is like, what is utopia look like? And I guess you have to put an asterisk there and say, under current circumstances, because speaking of tech and the future, I mean, in 20 years, one of the most fascinating questions for me is how tech will impact politics, and will these calculations be the same if we're living in a post-scarcity world? Do the libertarian economic principles still apply? So what does utopia look like? Is it maximal consent? Is it communism through mutual consent, in which case, great? Is it pure anarchy? Is it limited government, with basic services? Is it a socialist state that respects, I don't know. before we get into, topics of the day, and I'll ask you about Mike Tremont, give me a big picture response.
Well, first of all, I hate the term utopia because it doesn't exist. Anytime you're dealing with human beings, you're not dealing with utopia. Human beings are
Yeah.
nothing but problems. And if you ever were to provide human beings with with such abundance, so you're talking about the post-scarcity world. I don't believe that
Yeah.
exists or can exist,
Yeah.
because I think that the libertarian or
Mm.
the Austrian economic view is that human desires are infinite, right? Resources are always finite. Human desires are
Yeah.
infinite, and that's never going to change, right? But I don't think there's anything called utopia. If you gave everybody everything they think that they want, you took care of all of their material needs to the point where you were just sitting around, worrying about carrying on the species, like
Mhm.
human beings would burn it to the ground just so that something interesting would happen. I sort of
Mm.
borrowed that quote from Jordan Peterson, but I think it's 100% true. And I think that you'll find that as a society becomes more wealthy and there's fewer existential risks around feeding oneself and one's family, shelter, the basic needs are taken care of, society becomes more neurotic. Have you
Decadent,
noticed
neurotic.
that
Well,
we see a huge spike in anxiety and depression and mental health conditions as we get more abundance? I think that is
mm,
not a spurious correlation. I think those are tightly correlated, and I think
mm,
the more abundance you find, the more you're going to see that stuff sort of emerge. Human beings we're like sled dogs. We need something to pull against. We need some friction. We need some conflict. I think that's really, really important for our mental health. And without that, if you end up like a Wall-E, right? Like some world where robots are just taking care of everything that you think that you want, your basic needs, and just doting on you 24/7. Like, we're going to
mm.
want to tear that world apart. I don't think that's going to be durable.
Well, two things come to mind, and then we can talk, current events. But what is that experiment 22 with the mice? Something about, have you heard about that
Oh,
one?
is this like the Rat City experiment?
I think so. When they gave them everything they need and they tore each other to hell or whatever every
Yeah.
time,
Hmm.
repeatable.
Yep.
Yeah, something like that. And then, but Elon Musk saying, on the one hand, hey, I'm basically a libertarian economically, and on the other hand, we may be in a post-scarcity world in a few years. I'm like, whoa, well, what? That's interesting. And then Pete Buttigieg, when he ran in 2020, I was intrigued by him certainly at the time, and he was talking about how we're going to have to change our identity. Speaking of identity, the basis of this podcast, even though I've changed the name, masking search. Buttigieg said that we're going to have to. Do you remember? We're going to have to start conceptualizing ourselves beyond our work identity, what we do for a living. And so, what does that look like? So, these signals that we may be approaching that, but maybe not yet. Maybe not right around the corner. I can imagine what we're 3D printing everything, and it's just like, well, everything. What if we get there in 30 years, 50 years? But I guess that's
Yeah.
not for
And
today.
it's no, it can be for today. Like, my view on Elon Musk has changed pretty dramatically. Uh, I think that the sort of libertarian economic piece that he's been, it feels like he's cosplaying it.
Mm,
He was quoting Murray Rothbard and doing like this deference to Ron Paul, but the things that I'm seeing from him since he joined the Trump administration make me believe he's a really bad faith actor. And he's now saying we want a universal high income and we're going to have a post scarcity world. But it's like, well, what do you think
mhm,
that he thinks is a vehicle to get there? Well, it's obviously going to be Tesla automated cars, and it's going to be the Optimus robots, and it's everything that he sells is basically the answer to that question, right? So the vision
mm.
he's trying to paint is directly through his companies.
Well, how convenient. I mean, no, I mean, look, I don't know. It's crazy to think that it's interesting that you have such an influential guy doing what he does, particularly with the ownership of X and just the control of it in terms of talent, that he brings. He drives these conversations. So, I don't know. We're not living in Elon Musk's world, but this guy is a major player, and so So
For
it's
sure.
interesting.
And this is not to be like a knock on his technical ability or his ability as a CEO and to, deliver for his corporation. That's not what I'm saying at all. I guess this is more of an ethical judgment that I'm placing upon him. It's like I don't trust him. I don't believe that he's a good faith actor. And I think that as time progresses, like I'll be vindicated in that. I think a lot of people are
Very
starting.
interesting.
A lot of people are changing their tune. They're seeing what he's doing with X's algorithm. That's been a big sore spot for a lot of people. His reuniting with Trump after basically throwing him under the bus and saying essentially what everyone knows today, that Trump is in the Epstein files and he's sort of a bad dude. And
Yeah,
now
that
now
was.
he's back, in the
Trump says,
administration.
"Hey, give it to Trump. There's no such thing as never." Remember, he said that about Bannon years ago. You know,
Yeah, another guy that's in the Epstein files.
right? Look, I don't know. Um,
Yeah,
anyone
but
who
no. Like you know what I was gonna say? It's like
I
you don't
honestly
know, but you
don't.
know.
No, I honestly don't. I look, man. You know how I'm relatively surface level on most things. I need it printed on the front page of the New York Times, basically. Still,
You already did. What about the birthday book?
was that verified? You know, there was an
It can okay.
altered
No, it
image. The
wasn't that this is not altered. So the birth, it's important to know the context. So basically you have Epstein's estate, which continued on after him, right? You're familiar with the way trusts are constructed, or is that something that you know about?
Yes, I do. I do. Yes.
So he's got an estate, and there's trustees of his estate who hold all of his assets, which, by the way, are a huge part of that is investment in Palantir through Peter Thiel. That estate is making a ton of money off of Peter Thiel's investment or his company. So these people have a lot to lose, right? And they were responding to a Congressional Oversight Committee subpoena Ducey's Take'em, which is a subpoena, a congressional subpoena with documents. You have to provide information, right? And they'd heard by virtue of that story about the birthday card being in existence that Trump sued Rupert Murdoch over. And they delivered it. It's a book. It's a leather-bound book from the 90s. This is not something they went to Kinko's and printed out or a digital replica. This is a physical item that has a whole bunch of other really gross things. And the theme was the same throughout. And it was signed by everybody. Bill Clinton signed the thing. And nobody's questioning the veracity or the validity of any of the other components of it. For some reason, the Trumpists have just said, well, just one page, that's a forgery. And this is a giant ruse where in the 1990s, they decided to compile this leather-bound book and just so they could wait and then, bury Trump with it.
They've been after him since the 90s.
Man, it's such bullshit. And so,
well, I did think. I thought maybe I read something that said the drawing, the true version of the drawing was more age appropriate. Was bigger breasts, not childlike.
That is a scan. So if you go to the House Oversight Committee, they have every page of that book scanned in directly from the physical copy of the book. So what you're seeing online is a true representation of what was delivered to the House Oversight Committee. And it was an underage girl with no non-developed breasts, and the language that the sort of dialogue that Trump wrote in there is absolutely disgusting. It is all this nudge, wink, wink. Hey, Jeffrey, you and I have something in common.
No, it was totally like
it's disgusting.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And so that's one data point, right? So put that to the side. And there's also in that book too, there was a picture of a giant, like those game show checks. You seen those, like the oversized one,
Sure.
when there was a whole basically talk, and it was signed by Trump, and it was basically Jeffrey Epstein selling a depreciated girl to Donald Trump for like $22,000 or something like that. There's a bunch of stuff that's in there, but putting that book aside, you have plenty of stuff in the Epstein files that have been released that clearly implicate him. But also the biggest piece I think that people are paying attention to now is the fact that he's been so sketchy about trying to release anything. Like this, what do you mean?
Sure.
Do you guys still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? Like all this BS with Pam Bondi, they're on my desk. Nope, there are no Epstein. Like this constant game of sort of move the goalposts, and then he's clearly in violation of the law, right? So the Epstein Transparency Act that Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna co-authored, that has very very strict guidelines as far as what can be redacted and the process of the redactions, and the fact that they have to explain their redactions to Congress. They've done none of these things. They basically blacked out everything. They've only released 1% of the documents. Then they said, oh, we just found another million. It's all bullshit. And so there's something there, and everybody knows it. I think that Ford auto worker yesterday, he basically said something that I think the rest of the country is feeling, or at least a large portion of the country is feeling, is like, you are either clearly a pedophile, which I believe to be true, and if not, you're protecting pedophiles. You're using your office to cover for the biggest pedophile ring in human history that we know of, which is, I mean, which is worse. Either whichever thing is true, it's really, really bad. Like, that is like as low as you can possibly get, even for politics.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, you know, that here we are, where it's gone from total conspiracy theory to holy shit, there's an underground network, to holy shit, maybe everyone's involved. And how do we deal with that? I mean, this is not simple. And then you have the debates and the factions, or Trump is leading the storm and it's all happening. Don't worry, he's the good guy. And then you have people like yourself who are more skeptical of that and think he's just the chief ringleader, cover-up guy. So it's hard to get onto normal issues. How do we get past that? You want to say everyone who's committed a crime, you know, Trump's Law and Order, if I buy into that, and I'm sure Law and Order, fantastic. Why the fuck not? If I commit a crime, I'm going to jail, right? So
not for them, though. Not for them.
And if it really extends to everyone, though, like, then how do you deal with that? I don't know.
Yeah, it's not going away. That's the thing, is that this is not going away. And as a matter of fact, if you are, and I believe you are, like, on Team MAGA, you want Trump to succeed, or whatever, the Republicans to succeed.
I would agree with that.
So if you were advising him, what would you tell him? Because you have midterms coming up, and by all accounts, all the signals are that it's going to be a bloodbath. It is basically the Republicans are going to get completely wiped off the map, snatching defeat from the jaws of victory in the most colossal way we've
What do
ever
you think? So I'll tell you what I would tell him, but first you tell me a little market feedback. Why are they going to get creamed?
Because he's rug pulled the entire country. So he's gone back on every promise he's made throughout the campaign, and not just like a little bit. It's been this violent rug pull, and the way he's treated his supporters has completely alienated them. So they're not going to show up. They're either intentionally going to stay home to say fuck you, because I see these people. Because Brian, like, you and I are swimming in similar circles.
Sure,
I have tons of MAGA people, or former MAGA people, libertarians that supported him, whatever, in my sphere. And I see them. They're all like, holy shit.
So it's mostly the libertarian leaning MAGA that are falling away, right?
I don't even know, because it seems like hardcore, like center, like people that I see this all the time. I've voted for him 3 times. And this is no, I didn't. I'm saying I see people.
Right. I was like, I don't think you did. Yeah.
No, they're saying this. Like, I voted for this guy 3 times, and I didn't vote for this. I didn't vote for him to bomb 7 countries in a year. I didn't vote for.
No, I've seen that. Yeah.
It's constant. And so I think what you're seeing, and this is kind of a shame to me, because I have no love for the Democrats, as you know. When Trump took over, he had the greatest political opportunity I've seen probably in my lifetime.
He was like, anything, just whatever you want.
He could have gotten anything done. And when he walked in on day 1, and one of the first things he did was the CR. Remember the fight about the CR, continuing resolution? It was like just this profligate spending. It's like, well, we're just going to blow up the budget way above Biden levels. And then Thomas Massie wouldn't vote for it. And what did he do? He attacked Thomas Massie. He's like, you're not a team player. And whereas Massie is like, he's just a standard conservative. He's like a regular Republican from like 20 years ago, who actually cared about fiscal conservative issues and didn't want to expend the, all this money, and like cared about the, inflation problem and all these things. And he went after Massie, who represents a lot of the core conservative people who still kind of have this limited government belief. They want to cut spending, because there was so much talk leading up to the election that, Doge and Elon's here, we're gonna have Vivek, and we're gonna cut the spending. And they not only couldn't they cut a single penny from the budget, they exploded the spending. And then they said, oh, we'll take care of it later when we have the budget, the omnibus bill. And then he did the big, beautiful bill, which is even a bigger bastardization. It was the most spending in the human history. It's insane how much money they spent. And on top of that, they wiped out all the Doge cuts. So Elon's team found all this fraud and waste, and they said, well, we're actually just going to wipe that away. We're going to include all that. Thanks for letting us know about these little hidey holes that you found. We're going to just codify this spending in a way that you can't get around it with Doge, that Doge can't cancel contracts. They forced them to spend the money. When Congress appropriates money, it has to be spent. And so it's like everyone just saw like, okay, Doge is bullshit. Nobody's serious about cutting spending, and nobody will be. And so I just at that point I started to see the support fall off. And then it rolled into the Pam Bondi phase 1 binders, which were a complete joke. And it just seemed like from there it just spiraled. Then we're bombing Iran, and then obviously Israel's influence became a very big issue amongst a lot of people. They started to see this naked sort of like fact that Bibi Netanyahu kind of runs America, and Trump being kind of led around by his nose, and a lot of this stuff became clear, and people don't like it. They just really they don't like anything that's being delivered versus what was promised.
Yeah, I understand that. I would say, I think the only thing Trump can do is say, I am a generational figure. I am different. I am a mover and a shaker. The world is there are big machinations happening on the world stage right now, and you need a strong leader, and I am that person. You may not like what I'm doing in all these areas. You may not agree with how I'm approaching these issues, but I'm approaching them with vision and clarity and consistency, at least as I'm doing the things that I'm doing, maybe not in relationship to what I said previously while I was running.
What's consistent about it? I really got to ask this, because to me, it seems like there's no internal consistency. There's just action. Like you can say, oh, well, he's shaking things up. Well, okay, fine. That's true. Yeah. He's clearly making, but there's nothing that comports with, like you said, anything he's said on record and anything that his base believes in. The base does not believe in attacking Venezuela and stealing the resources. The base does not believe in attacking.
Little pretzel. Let me get out my pretzel move here. Hold on. I was always for Venezuela. No, I don't know. There's something, you could turn that back and say, look, MAGA is about naked realism and competence and protecting America's interests. And for whatever reason, the oil, I guess, Trump decided to do this, and it's imperial. It's worthy of debate, intense debate. But what you can't say is that it's out of, I don't want to say, I was going to say it's out of nowhere, because it does seem out of nowhere, but it's not like he woke up one day and said, we're going in. Clearly, there are enough critical mass of people who, and this is not necessarily a reflection of its moral quality, but so I don't know. It's my naivete and gullibility still saying, man, maybe he's just a strong leader who will do both things, and that in our interests, and you either like that or you don't.
Well, I'm gonna tell you straight up, people don't like this. This is something that the conservatives, even the populists, like I've already had to make concessions. I had Adam Johnson on my show, the lectern guy, right? And he actually opened my eyes to a lot of the way that the populists view Trump, and I get it. There's not like a solid core of principles in populists. They kind of like the strong leader, and but ultimately that group still is, it's not a singular type of group. It's very diverse, but there is a core. I think there's still a core that resonates, like their internal center resonates with the language Trump used on the campaign trail.
I understand that. The QAnon shaman, for example, another example of a guy who you would think is core to the hilt.
He's off the team, man. He is, and there's a lot of people that are getting that way. And I think that you've just seen this critical. This is my prediction: is that Trump has gone too far. Like I think there has been some forgiveness for various things. Like for example, the COVID shots. Like he was behind all of that shit, and the debt that he racked up in his first administration, and the inflation that he caused, that crisis that was on his watch. I think I sent you that link. I mean, I don't know if you gathered that before I sent it to you, but Trump is responsible for 26% of all of the federal debt that's ever been accumulated from 1776 until now. We're talking more than a quarter in just over 4 years. That is insanity. And so you have these things that keep chipping away. It's okay, he's not a fiscal conservative, and he doesn't believe in free markets, and he's doing the crony capitalism thing with Pfizer, and he delivered Operation Warp Speed, which gave away the farm to these big pharma companies, and the mRNA technology and all the damage those shots caused. And then on top of that, his day one in the White House, he brings in Larry Ellison. They start talking about we're going to use mRNA to do cancer vaccines and all this sort of, like, everything that is, it's just a series of rug pulls after rug pulls after rug pulls after rug pulls. And I think that there is a critical mass. I don't know where the line is, but I feel like we're past it, to where the standard Republican voter, particularly in the midterms, because Republicans don't come out in midterms very well anyway, right? I think the betrayals have gotten so big that people are, they're either pissed off and they're like, fuck you, and I'm off the team, like the QAnon shaman dude, or they're like just apathetic and like, this is all bullshit. Like I supported him. I did my part. He stabbed us in the back. I'm staying home. But either way, I think the result's going to be a massive win for the Democrats, which is just insane, because beginning of Trump's first year, the talk was, will Democrats ever recover? Because they had no plan. They ran on the woke shit that people just Trump was a repudiation of that woke shit. And the fact that they're going to win 2 years later and just wipe the floor with the Republicans, that is a, like I said, all I can think of is snatching a fucking defeat from the jaws of victory in the most epic fashion. I'm shocked, actually, that this is the world. But he's going to get impeached again. Like, that's going to happen. It's going to be a shit show after the midterms.
For what you think?
Doesn't matter. I mean, I hope it's for Epstein. I hope it's for Epstein, because I think he deserves to go down for Epstein. Like I said, even if you don't believe he's a pedophile, if you're covering for people, because we're talking thousands of victims, Brian. I had one of them on my show, Juliette Bryant. There's thousands of victims, and there's, like, I don't know if you know, the U.S. Virgin Islands sued J.P. Morgan for their role in Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking ring. There was $1.1 billion of money that went through his account, just his JP Morgan account, related to sex trafficking. $1.1 billion, dude. And they settled with the victims. It was almost, between JP Morgan Chase and Deutsche Bank, it was almost $500 million of a settlement went to the victims. That's how big this is.
It's incredible. And it's kudos to you for caring so much about it. And I'm not trying to say that I don't, but some more than others. And all I can say is kudos for bringing it to the fore. I'm thinking, I just had this guy who's running for governor in Maine on. His name is David Jones, businessman, construction, real estate, built, a lot of units and commercial buildings in Florida, and is a real estate broker in Maine, excuse me. And he was saying how Trump's planning to get rid of the income tax through tariffs. And I don't know, would that be like revolutionarily cool if you did that? And my point is,
you can't do it, though. That you can't do it. Mathematically, it's 100% impossible.
Well, so here's a business guy at the end of his career, seems to have done well for himself, seems to have been a competent CEO, telling me this is what he's going to do. And so
you can't, though. I'm shocked that he would even bring this up, because the analyses have been done. We're paying currently, at current levels, we're paying $1.7 trillion annually just to service the existing debt, and we're adding $2 trillion of debt a year at this current rate. You cannot replace that with tariffs. And also, people, there's another good point that I like to raise, is people don't realize that the foreigners aren't paying the tariffs. This is just taxes. Like, tariffs are taxes on Americans. And so Trump has actually instituted the largest tax hike in U.S. history by virtue of his tariffs. And he's increased his spending. So he's basically outed himself as a tax and spend liberal, and everybody's cheering. And I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, you do call him, the most effective leftist president you've ever seen, right?
I don't know about effective, but I will say he's the most hard left president I've ever seen. But he's got this, like, authoritarian fascist, and I don't use this, I mean that technically, I don't mean it as like a pejorative, although it is a pejorative. He is that authoritarian leftist leader, and it's something to me that dismays me quite a lot, that people think that this is cool. This is something that America should be about. Where I see this is even if you take the founders approach, it's like this is completely diametrically opposed to the vision that the founders had for America. They had this like sort of limited government concept, and the federal government had very small powers, very enumerated list of powers that they just super weak, and the states should have all the power, and the president in particular was supposed to be the weakest of the three branches. It's almost a throwaway office. When they gave the presidents, or early presidents gave the State of the Union address, it was just hand delivered. They just wrote it and
Right.
they delivered it to Congress. It wasn't this giant speech, and this wasn't a cult of personality, and they had very, very limited, weak
There was
powers.
no administrative state that is controlled by the executive, so it didn't matter who the
Correct.
executive was, really.
Yeah.
Congress did things instead of
And now,
delegating all their authority to these executive agencies controlled by the president. So I guess the argument is, if we're going to live in this system, or if we're living in this world where it's kind of a facade, the government, as we understand it, and what it really is kind of like a central power, a really strong central government. If we're going to have that, and we have had it, might as well have a competent guy at the helm, or gal.
Why would you want competence, though? This is what confuses me, because if you're going to say, okay, we accept now that the executive is going to be super overgrown based on what it's supposed to be, tons of power, has very few checks on its power. Why would you want competence? I would want vastly incompetent people up there that couldn't do nefarious things with it, because I don't want a guy getting stuff done with that type of power, because anytime they get stuff done, it ends up being very bad for the people.
Well, does it? And I haven't read all the books you have, but isn't it Hans Hermann Hoppe that argues in some ways that like a good monarchy is better than a typical democracy, because the monarchist treats it like an ownership property, whereas the person in power in a democracy is really renting the place.
I'm not Hoppian, man. Like I don't, and I also don't really subscribe to any isms. Like I even hate the libertarianism type of thing. I'm like I'm based in ethical philosophy. I want free markets. I want no state interference at all. I want Brian and Brent to be able to just get together and be like, hey, you want to trade? Yep, this works out for me. We agree to do it. I don't want a guy in the middle with his hand, out and a gun pointed in our faces saying, "Where's my cut, dude?" I don't want any of that. So the way I'm seeing it is like, I'm looking back through my life. I'm 50 years old, but I've watched a pretty wide arc of events, and over time, I'm seeing freedom being squashed, right? So we used to be way more free when I was younger. We have vastly less freedom, economic freedom, personal freedom than we did when I was growing up. And that seems like we're going the wrong direction. And I'm seeing, as the state grows, the government grows, as their power grows, our purchasing power is being destroyed, like through inflation. You look at the value of the dollar, it's like lost like 97% of its purchasing power. The poor and the middle class are getting destroyed. Like inflation is the most regressive tax there is. And by virtue of the government spending like it is, like it's hurting the poor and the middle class. I know you come from the left. You're originally a liberal dude. And I'm assuming you care about the poor and the middle class.
I care about everybody. Yes, absolutely. And understand a special sensitivity applies to poor and lower middle class people.
Yeah, totally. Because like they're the ones that are most hurt by this. That they're the ones that are trying to just put gas in their tank and go to work and put groceries on the table and stuff. And any changes in their purchasing power, the dilutions of their purchasing power, hit them the hardest. And so it's like it's really tough. And I see just across the board the surveillance state. We can talk about that with ICE. Everyone, that seems to be a hot button topic right now. It's like ICE.
Well, yes. Go ahead.
I say the conservatives love this. This is red meat, because typically the Republicans are, for various reasons, whether ostensibly it's like, well, they're leeching off the welfare state system, or they're depressing wages, or a couple arguments like that. But I think ultimately there's a lot of racism that's baked in. I'm not saying everything's racism. I'm not like a crazy blue hair critical social justice person. I hate that stuff too, but it does hit home for me. I see a lot of people that just don't want brown people in their country, want them to get kicked out, and the Republicans know that, and they can push a lot of things on that group of people that they could never do on citizens. So what I'm afraid of, and this is something I know to be a fact, is that Palantir is the system that backs up ICE, right? So if you've noticed, the ICE agents are doing facial scans, they're doing license plate scans. Like all this data is a system that's run by Palantir, and they're testing it out on people who are not. I mean, it's obviously citizens are getting scanned too, but this group that's being targeted have no rights. Essentially, these are people. These are the throwaway people. There's people that nobody cares about, and you can just abuse them. You can tackle them. You can kick them in the face. You can shoot them. Like nobody gives a shit. And they can use this tech to sort of prime the system to be used against Americans later. I'm seeing a replay of the George W. Bush years when we had the Patriot Act and we had all this surveillance state started to emerge, and you had Edward Snowden and had all these things that popped out. I'm seeing this happening with ICE, and the Republicans are clapping like seals, and I think it's incredibly dangerous. And they're not going to understand how bad it is until it gets used against them. I think a social credit system is starting to be put into the works. The CBDCs are getting ramped up. I know this is where it's heading, and nobody seems to care. I think this is incredibly dangerous territory, and we should all be opposed to this.
Man, I mean, look, these are good points. I'm not going to pretend like everything I've learned over the last couple of years doesn't make me want to say, yeah, those are really good points. These are crazy times with the technology convergence and Trump. I guess it's really the technology more than anything, though. Where are we going? And what are his priorities? There's no part of you that thinks it's too early to judge this guy into a second term, and maybe he's gonna, by the second or third year, I'm gonna be going, damn, this guy.
Well, let me test that. So maybe you pitch it. Tell me something that you think is potentially likely that would be considered like turning the corner for him, or delivering on something that I would find attractive, or even like that's a high bar. Maybe his base would find attractive. What would you think that he would be able to deliver before the midterms that would get people excited to maybe come out and vote for him? Because I can't think of anything. Like his entire agenda from top to bottom, domestic policy, foreign policy. He's trying to replace Jerome Powell with the BlackRock CIO, to have ultra low interest rates come back and fire up the money printer and QE, which is going to be incredibly damaging. Like across the board, I mean, nationalizing companies. I mean, literal communism is just taking stake in private companies.
It's been fascinating. Bernie has had to admit that Trump has, in some ways, been as effective the most effective. I know I was putting the words in your mouth using the word effective, but Bernie, I think, did use the word. I think it was on Jon Stewart recently saying, like, yeah, he's been pretty effective in some ways. Getting more done than the left has ever done. And one of those things was certainly ownership in companies. Yeah. Trump, that's why Trump was so interesting to me. He's like a chameleon. And the housing, the intent to ban the large financial institutions from purchasing single family homes. I mean, the libertarian probably says that's not good policy, but it's interesting. And so that's where I come from. I go, I'm not that, I'm not on track to be a senator. Okay. So I'm just talking here with friends. I'm like, oh, this guy seems interesting. Huh. But you see it from a much more critical, informed angle.
Well, he's definitely interesting. Like, there's no question he's an interesting human being, and he can be quite funny. But at the same time, we're trending in some pretty dangerous territory here, because on top of all of the policy issues that I've raised, he's clearly becoming demented. Like anybody can look at him and say he's got some serious slippage that's going on. He's falling asleep in meetings. You get these these stories, which I won't even repeat, that have happened like 2 days in a row, of him smelling terrible and some other things in public that are embarrassing. He looked like he had a stroke. I mean, did you pay attention to that, where like an entire one side of his face just started drooping?
I really haven't been seeing. I read, my couple newsletters in the morning. I haven't been listening to the news. I haven't been watching TV. Been listening to random podcasts, UFO crap. So I haven't been seeing a lot of Trump on a daily.
But my point is, like, okay, him on a good day before the health issues is one thing, but now imagine somebody with his proclivity to go off the reservation anyway on top of having dementia, like serious mental issues, like Joe Biden. Like what does that look like? Because with Biden, it was obvious to everybody that he didn't run anything. They just trotted him out in front of the camera every 3 months, and he said a couple of lines and then shuffled off like a Roomba, getting lost. Like everybody knew, okay, there's a group of people, there's a cabal around him that's running things, and he's just a figurehead.
No, but your point is well taken. Trump is in charge, clearly. And so what happens when one fraction of the personality in this scenario goes haywire and no one's there to censor?
Who's going to stop? Who's going to stop him?
Yeah. Look, I mean, what can you say? It's wild. It's great drama. It's unfortunate that there's a sex trafficking story that is unresolved. It's just terrible. It's just awful. It's unfortunate that you think that you make compelling arguments that he's not running the country the way he said he would. You make a similar argument about Elon, basically. So are they basically in cahoots?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So Elon
to what? To what?
I don't know exactly, but I do know that Starlink is in play. I'm quite certain that Starlink and the CIA are linked. There's some data capture. Like if you notice, like all of a sudden Starlink is free in Venezuela and it was free in Ukraine. Like there's some intelligence aspect to the Starlink thing. And I know it's funded by the United States government. SpaceX is funded by the United States government. That's already well documented. X has in recent days has been exposed for giving data to the government, which Elon didn't really hide. It's in the terms of service, but it's been confirmed that they're actually sharing this, like deleted DMs and tweets and things like that from a long time ago are being presented to the government. The algorithms clearly being tweaked, and I think that Tesla is receiving subsidies as well from the United States government, like the EV subsidies. Like I know he said like, oh, I don't want the subsidies, let's cancel it for everybody, but he gets a vast sum of money from the government. And I think Elon, like if I'm giving you my honest take on Elon, is that he's just autistic as hell and is convinced that we need to become a multi-planetary species. So every one of his businesses here is geared towards that. I think he's got a singular focus of getting off planet and going to Mars. I don't think he gives a shit how he gets there. He can
what's your take on extraterrestrials? I don't know. Have I ever asked you that?
You have, and I actually, from our last talk, I started looking into it more, and this is where it gets confusing for me because I think there's clearly government interference in that world. The Lou Elizondos of the world. There's misinformation that's being put out there. Billy Corgan, if you saw, he went on the record a couple days ago talking about Tom DeLonge's being paid to sort of be a celebrity face of the UAP movement. So I think there's probably some advanced tech that's going on, and I think they use extraterrestrials and the UFO kind of cover story to kind of divert, like be a diversion for the program.
And
I think
conceptually, it's not like I have super well thought out responses, but my jerk reaction is, why wouldn't you just hide the technology then? What's the point?
I think the technology is something that is not hideable. Like you have to test it somewhere. Because I remember, like I'm an '80s kid. Like I grew up in the '80s, and back when the stealth bomber, that was not a known thing. We had UFO sightings all the time around the test area.
So I guess the answer is, because I was going to say, well, then why wouldn't you advertise that, hey, yeah, we have this, so don't fuck with us? I guess the answer is because then you'd have a duty to provide to your citizens all the benefits.
Correct. And then also, like, there's some ethical components too. Like, what if they're doing something in the UAP space that is clearly unethical, or presents like a problem, like with the Manhattan Project with nuclear technology? Like maybe there's some new breakthrough in physics. I know Eric Weinstein talks about this a lot. Like potentially this whole thing with string theory monopolizing the physics community.
Bullshit.
It's all bullshit. Eric thinks that potentially the U.S. government had some breakthrough, and then the string theory stuff was just another diversion to sort of distract away from the fact that we might have had this major breakthrough in physics, and the government's hiding it. And so,
yes, I'm in the rabbit hole. And does Weinstein? I've heard that. Does Weinstein? I don't know the answer to this. Does he refer to like anti-gravity? Is that what he hints at?
He talks a lot about gravity, and this is interesting. A sort of tie back to Epstein, because I don't know if you know this, but
no. He's interested.
Very interested, and he actually
Yes.
Weinstein had met Epstein. Epstein was interested in his work, his geometric unity theory, and there was a conference in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Dr. Lawrence Krauss, who's been on my show, attended that with Sabine
I think I
Vanderlinde.
saw that episode actually.
There's a whole bunch of in the science community attended a symposium in the U.S. Virgin Islands called "Confronting Gravity." And so it was all the big, top physicists, and it was all centered on gravity. And so it's hard to say because it's so murky and there's so much subterfuge and there's so much misdirection. It's hard
Right.
to.
And it's like, you're telling me. So wait, that was an Epstein thing?
Yeah.
You're telling me Epstein and the anti-gravity and you can't make it up. No, you can't make this up. Like, really? So who knows?
Yeah, that's the problem. Is like, who knows? I've never seen anything that I would consider.
Isn't Weinstein's Twitter bio like assume a traversable cosmos?
Yeah,
but he's a skeptic. But he comes across as skeptical. So like, I don't know what to make of him. He's half of his posts I can't understand. I'm like, dude, I don't have the fucking time to decipher this, bro. Like, yeah, I get it. You're smart. I'm dumb.
That's interesting because I've got another guy that was on my show who wants to overturn Einstein. His name is Dr. Delbert Larson. He was actually a super smart guy. He has got a reboot of the quantum luminiferous ether theory, which is completely, I mean, it's super sound and rigorous, and he can derive Maxwell's equations, and like it's very interesting theory. But I use him as my proxy. He's so smart. He's a guy who built particle colliders back in the day, like the Fermi Lab in Chicago is a giant particle accelerator. Like he built that thing. Like he was one of the guys who was involved in that project. And he's super smart. So I talk to him a lot about this stuff, and he's trying to suss it out. And so sometimes you almost need like a proxy, like a prosthetic brain. And like, that's my guy. So hearing Weinstein talk about, like his geometric unity theory and all of the,
what is that theory succinctly?
I don't even know if I could explain it. Like I would butcher it. Out of respect to Eric, I won't even say it, but it has to do with something. There was a God, what the hell is that thing called? It's math essentially. It's
tetrahedron,
or no. There's this shape. There's a sort of like mathematical shape that's kind of at the center of his thing. And I really feel bad because I studied it for a while, but it was like a year ago, and I've kind of lost it. It was back when he was debating Sean Carroll on Piers Morgan. I don't know if you saw that back and forth, where. Yeah, Sean, you look that up. That's
Sean Carroll. I'll have to check it
Sean
out.
Carroll is one of the major physicists that's in that string theory community, and he's like a science communicator, and he completely misrepresented Eric Weinstein's work. He's like, well, you don't have a Lagrangian, and that he's going through all this stuff, and Eric posted a rebuttal that pointed out exactly in the paper where the Lagrangian was, how he derived all his equations. It was super interesting, but there's this just goes to your point, like you and I, somebody's like a lay person trying to figure this stuff out is almost impossible. And overlay all the bullshit that's just being thrown at you from every direction.
And you've got Tim Burchett, and I always mix his name up.
Oh,
I think I got it right that time.
I hate that guy.
Oh, really?
Oh God. Well, because he's, by the way, I'm in Tennessee and he's in Tennessee, and he's somebody
who's kind of Massey aligned, even though he's neutral.
He's well, I mean, he's not. He's like that's a shot at Massey, in my opinion. Like he's nowhere aligned. Matter of fact, he was blocking Massey and Ro Khanna's bill for months and months and months. And I used to tweet at him. I sent videos to him. He's protecting the pedophiles like everybody else. And I know he's in the UAP space, and that's a whole separate thing, but I don't think he's nearly as fiscally conservative as Massey, not even in the ballpark.
Well, I'm sure that's true. With Massey, is it wrong to look at it like this? This is what I concluded the other day. Maybe a guy like Massey, Paul, maybe these guys, they're so principled that they're not willing to say, ladies and gentlemen, this is my position. This is my belief. If I were in charge of this government, we wouldn't be doing it. And I know this is hypocritical, but I'm going to vote with the party because, we're in a party system, and, my protest vote doesn't gain anything. Whereas if this passes and the Democrats lose in whatever situation we're in, at least there's a chance of getting to a better result. Playing ball, so to speak. Nothing to that.
I don't think so. I think that he's got it exactly right. Is that Massey? And I disagree with him. I think the Constitution is bullshit, and I have a bunch of problems with him. But I think that from the mental model he's coming at it from, which is more of a constitutional originalist. Like, this is what the government's supposed to be. Here's enumerated federal powers. Here's state powers. He's got this sort of mental model, and like he's saying, like, look, I'm a representative of my district. KY4 is my district. These are the people. I talk to them every day. My job is when I'm in the room voting, I want to vote the interests of my constituents, right? In alignment with the Constitution and the separation of powers and all these things. So I think that he's just a principled person that says, look, everybody, I don't care what the other representatives are doing. My job and my responsibility is to my district. And so I'm going to vote in accordance with my principles and my beliefs and my constituents, and then let the chips fall where they may. And he also like votes. He says this all the time. He votes with Republicans 91% of the time. It's not like he's just completely being intransigent and fighting against his party all the time. There's just certain things like the big beautiful bill. It's just like, it's a no-go for me, dog. Like, I'm not going to vote to add all this debt to future generations, and I'm not going to vote to devalue the dollar anymore. I'm not going to vote. I think he's just got these lines that he will not cross. Like the pedophile thing for him clearly was a line that he wasn't willing to cross. But 9 times out of 10 voting for the Republicans, like, that's not a bad team record. I think Trump is over his skis trying to claim that he's some Democrat plant and he's always voting with the Democrats. That's insanity.
Well, I mean, we all know Trump is going to indulge. Okay, I mean, there's no question about that. So you had Mike Tremont on the other day. How was that?
I did. That was interesting. I enjoyed my conversation with Mike. I tried to be nice. The fact that he's a cop, it was hard for me to.
So have you met him before?
Never have. No, that was the first time.
I'm a big fan of Mike's. Yes, he's a former cop, former economist in some capacity.
Yep.
Former libertarian, and now he's very smart, very just very up to speed, and okay, like this guy, I could see him running something, right? Recently,
he's also pragmatic too. So I talked to him, and I
speaking of that, he moved from he was a libertarian presidential candidate in 2024, of course, and controversially became the vice president to Chase Oliver. All of that, but he recently became a Republican, a Libertarian caucus. So pragmatism.
Republican Liberty Caucus, RLC. That's his baby right now, and I gave it to him both barrels. I was kind of like, hey, man, I don't think this is going to move the needle. And he admitted too. He's like, chances are incredibly small we're going to be able to do anything, but I got to try. And so that's kind of where he landed, which I have no problem with. Like, if you want to try to somehow limit government, if you want to try to lower spending, you want to get some more liberty leaning candidates, like, there's no problem in that's not my enemy at all.
Right.
Like, I look at somebody like
what was your preference, or what would your guidance been to him though, if not that course? As someone who wants to, help.
I would just give them the advice that I sort of advocate for on my show, which is focus on yourself. Like, your locus of control is you personally, and then it extends to your family, and then it goes out to your community. And every step you take away from that center, you have less control. And I think people have the funnel inverted. They're focused so much on the federal. I need to change the presidential candidate. I need to change Congress. Like they're so focused so far away. They're focused on DC. And I think that's intentional, or maybe it's subconscious. I think there's something to this where people have got shitty lives primarily because of themselves. But it's way easier, more satisfying to point at some loser in Congress or the president and be like, you're the reason my life sucks, And so I'm very much like, I want to get that thing inverted. I want to start with where you have the most control, which is yourself and your family and your community, and then whatever. Beyond that, it gets pretty diluted very quickly.
I guess it makes you go, like, who would run for office? That's kind of where you're coming from.
Well,
and that's a common theme I've heard. I mean, it's in the system we have. What kind of person? There's a few types, and they're interesting.
It's like basically hall monitor syndrome, right? Anybody who would want that type of power, you should automatically distrust. Like, that's the way I look at it. Like, why would you want to bully your fellow, citizens? Like, what? It's self-centered.
Depending on how you look at it, but I get you, right? I mean, I'm sure not all of them think they want to bully, but they want to make a difference. They believe in government.
And somehow they just magically go from, $100,000 net worth to 33 million in 4 years. Like that just happens every time magically too. So I don't believe in that. I think the public servant thing, there might be a couple that go in with doughy eyes in the beginning, but I think that gets beat out of them in 6 months. I heard Massey talk about that, like his first 6 months in DC, and he's just like, holy shit, man, like this place is a sewer. It's like an absolute cesspool. And the second you walk in the door, if you've got those principles, you're flushed out. Like you're either off the team, made persona non grata, everyone fights against you. There's just not really any place for principled people in DC to go, and it shows.
So nothing on the Democrat side that attracts you at all?
Not anymore.
Other than maybe those pursuing the Epstein case?
I don't think they are, though. I still don't even believe the Democrats who ostensibly say they want the Epstein Files released. I don't think they want it released. I think the government, to me, is like pro wrestling, where there's like Vince McMahon's in the background, and then they roll out the good guys in the heels.
It's a movie.
It's a movie. It's all a stage. And so I think the people who actually run things are never going to let the Epstein Files get out. I truly believe World War III will start before they release anything that's in the Epstein Files. It's not going to happen. And people just, maybe this is the great thing about the Epstein Files. It will finally.
Oh, I lost your audio.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Yep. It'll finally reveal that it's all a charade.
Yeah. So I think it's gonna, through the Epstein Files, will reveal that this is all bullshit. Like you're never going to see them. The whole thing is run by the same cabal, and that you got these Republicans and Democrats who are just playing WWE, and you're joining some fake team. You're like, are you the good guys, or are you with the heels? I think that's going to become manifest through all this, because nobody wants them to come out. And even if Democrats get power, they impeach Trump, and then the Republicans flip, and now we want the Epstein Files, and the Democrats will say we don't want to release them. It's just going to go round and round, man. Like, I don't believe in any of these people.
Well, look, you have half the country or Trump supporters, many of them still thinking that Trump is, if not a savior, and just an uber competent guy, a spectacle, a phenomenon, and left to his own devices, generally speaking, pretty good at what he does, running the country, and they have faith in him. They think he's incorruptible. Believe it or not, people really do. He was wealthy, so that's
like the boomer con people. That's like your uncle on Facebook that always posted like the bald eagle memes and shit. Yeah. Everybody's uncle, everybody's Facebook uncle, everyone's got one that posts some crazy bullshit like that. That's got bald eagles and guns and America. Like the people that watch Fox News incessantly. Like there's that group. The people that watch Dan Bongino's show. Dan Bongino fans. Jesus,
I don't watch Dan.
That was a crash out. Have you paid attention to that at all? His
time at the FBI.
Well, I'm talking about him coming back and then beefing with Dave Smith and starting all this war with the basically his base, people who supported him going in. He's fighting with them.
He's an interesting microcosm.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting one, because he's basically thinking he's coming back to save the midterms. Like that was appears to be the strategy. Like we're gonna roll Dan back out to his old role, and then basically
send in Dan.
Exactly. And he got back, and literally everybody in unison's like, fuck you, Dan. The point is, it's a meme. I don't know if you paid attention.
No, I
all these people are posting their Dan Bongino blocks, because basically everyone's like, okay, Dan, you went, because he came back and he was so aggressive coming back.
I did see him like a couple days ago say something about the fact that if you want to block me this or something, well then.
Well, he was threatening Dave Smith's family. Like he crashed. He crashed out so hard, and it's like Dave Smith is so good. Like he's a comedian.
I'm a big fan of Dave Smith as a person and as a political commentator. He's great. You can't fuck around. You got to be prepared. You better come correct.
Yeah, and he's going to destroy Dan's career. So it's and I think that says something about the midterms again, is the fact that you can't pull this bullshit over people's eyes. Like people really care about this.
Well, and I guess it's a question of like what is the majority of the newcomers that reelected Trump? Is it people like yourself and Dave Smith, or is it more people like me who are maybe more gullible or less informed, so to speak, or maybe have a more optimistic view of Trump, who are more willing to say, hey, look, you know what? Solid points, worthy of discussion. These are controversial times. My goodness. I mean, I've been listening to Tucker a bit. Great podcast host. Do you listen to him?
I do. And actually, there's another topic I want to bring up. So I'm going to let you finish, but there's something that's really important to me that I want to follow up on. So go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that of course, I get being critical of a guy who you support broadly, so to speak. But people like me, more willing to say, I was going to say, maybe like Tucker, willing to see it and say, yeah, that's kind of imperial, that move right there. That's not very libertarian base leaning, that move right there. But I acknowledge that, but I'm not gonna leave supporting Trump right now. I'm not gonna leave the Trump camp. So who is the majority of the people? So yeah, the midterms, it's an interesting one. I think all Trump can do is lean into kind of his image, of course. I mean, what else is Trump going to do? He's very image based. Lean into his grandiosity, and make the argument that he's trying to implement kind of revolutionary changes. Yada yada yada. So, what was on your mind?
Well, it's anti-Semitism, man. So I know that you're Jewish, and I've got a lot of Jewish friends, and this is
Yeah.
something that bothers me: is that I'm seeing this rise in anti-Semitism that seems to be stemming directly from Trump's second term. There's this fact that Netanyahu has visited 5 times, and Miriam Adelson gave like $250 million to his campaign, and appears to be calling the shots. And Trump even jokes about her, having so much power, and him basically being a lapdog for Israel. It's like, and I'm a very, I have a very clear, bright line between the state of Israel, right, the government of Israel, and Jewish people, right? But there are people that don't, and this where I'm seeing this rise of like the Nick Fuentes, there's the Groypers, and and I see it, and I know you do too, Brian. There's people on Twitter that say horrible things about Jewish people, and there's these memes, they're disgusting. There's like a lot of this like blatant anti-Semitism, and I think it's very similar to, which you'll understand, the pushback against woke. It's like it got so big that people finally said, fuck you. And I see a lot of people with the woke, like, you're going to call me a racist all day long, then guess what? I'm going to start acting racist. And there's this like this reaction. And I'm seeing this with the Israel thing. And I think that the United States government supporting Israel's genocide of Gaza, I mean, they fucking flattened that place. Like Charlie Kirk was a big one. I still don't know exactly what happened there, but him starting to back away from Israel and then suddenly getting himself.
The timing is dramatic. I mean, the sequence of events at a surface level didn't pay too close of attention, but it does make you go, well, geez, that's at the very least unfortunate from perception. Like,
exactly,
that's fuzzy. Now, obviously, Trump is extremely aligned with Israel. He's obviously extremely pro-Israel, and I'm a Jewish person who's plugged into a Jewish community, a Jewish family. I'm not ready to pass judgment here and now on all of that, other than to say I am more predisposed than your average person to be okay with general support and general alignment. Now, extreme with civilian, it's awful. I mean, no one wants to be in a position to be defending horrible things, and so then you get into the whole debate of war and necessary and all of that. And look, it's just terrible what's happened. It's fair to say that.
How do you feel, man? Like, how does it feel being Jewish online today, particularly on X?
Well, it feels like it's kind of a strange, I should first say that I'm not your typical Jew, because my identity is not Jewish. Being Jewish is not quite central to my identity. It's a bit peripheral, but it also is central. So I'm a certain type of Jew, very reformed, grew up in a very liberal home, in a home that was not actually necessarily extraordinarily sympathetic to Israel, but have had broader experiences beyond that as a Jew, and despite it not being central to my life. And so I'm an interesting case, you might say. And it feels weird from going to an internal thing, an internal identity battle for me. Like, how Jewish do I feel? How American do I feel? You know, when I was in Israel for my birthright trip, when I was 20, and in the second to last night in Tel Aviv, calling my grandma, do you feel like you're home? I go, home? I'm from New Jersey. What are you talking about? So, now you get older, and my wife, I'm just recently married. She's an observant Jew, and and there's shades of what that looks like religiously and culturally as well within that. So it's like it's a whole can of worms, man. And so assessing it went from an internal battle that it's always been to, and by the way, one that I'm leaning into more of that identity, to nationals the issue. Like, okay, now this is like, now I got to choose a side. I got to really have an opinion on this. And so I would say it's been kind of strange, and it's a bit unfortunate. I would say still wrestling with issues of identity, but I'm proud to be who I am. I'm proud that I'm Jewish. I'm proud that I'm American. I guess then, the childlike knee-jerk reaction wants to say, I want to be a kid who proudly puts his hands on his heart and supports the flag of the United States of America. I want to be proud of my Jewish heritage, and to the extent that there are no conflicts between the two countries' interests, be a supporter of Israel, and so all of that's what I want to be, right? I guess because I'm a Jew and I live in the world, and so coming to terms with all of that. So it's but yes, now I totally understand why people look at a guy like me and say, he's a newbie to MAGA. Okay, he was genuinely anti-woke. Let's give him that. But as soon as it comes to Israel, now he's trying to be the gatekeeper of who is and who isn't MAGA. Nick Fuentes is going to look at a guy like me and say, this guy, Brian Esca, wants to come on the scene and say, I'm Nick Fuentes, not MAGA, because I'm calling out Israel and the new blood in MAGA isn't. So it's all very interesting, but I don't quite think it's fair to say that the woke right is actually the people like me who are saying, if you're anti-Israel in any way, you're bad. I understand that, but I don't think it's equal to the critical race theory stuff, inherently anti-American and anti-white narratives built into culture over decades, really, and institutions. I think it's all related. And whether it should be or not, in many ways it should be related, but in some ways they're unfortunately twisted together now. Too many Jews pushing CRT. Well, wait a minute, is it really the type of Jew that's pro-Israel that's pushing the CRT? What's that overlap? It's just all kind of a mess, and Vance is kind of well positioned to bridge that divide. On the right,
you think so?
Well, I think so. I mean, I do.
I mean, he kissed the wall, so there's that.
Right, exactly. He kissed the wall, but he also defends people who express strong views online, who question the relationship to Israel. He respects that point of view. He doesn't poo-poo it. And I think he's concerned with damn near all the issues besides Israel potentially that the average Groyper has, American economic interests. So, it's just a matter of, do you believe that Israel bad? Is JD Vance a sellout, or is he a really great? Is he the best of MAGA? Is he the Trump MAGA? Which is, yeah, we're gonna have this Fuentes Groyper affect, if you will, but no, we are going to be realists. We are pro-Israel. So there's a difference. And my calculation has been, of course, that MAGA is the Vance, the new blood, not just the pure Nick Fuentes. And there's been a civil war since he got elected. Absolutely, that's what you've been talking about this whole time. Now, not from a MAGA Groyper, but it's interesting that the Libertarians have kind of felt this war betrayed. So has the Groypers. So what is MAGA? What is Trump? And you slide a guy like me in there and go, you know what? I don't really know, but he's shaking things up. He seems to be pro-America. And I have this kind of naive hope that it's all going to be for the better.
Well, we'll see. And I think Vance has zero chance of getting elected. And I think some of that might be tied to his link with TPUSA. I think TPUSA, there's been some very big changes and some things that have emerged because of the Charlie Kirk assassination that are going to make TPUSA and Vance a little bit radioactive. Do you have any opinion on that?
I'm honestly not sure what you're talking about.
Are you familiar with TPUSA being embroiled in a giant embezzling scandal?
Honestly, no, it hasn't really come across any of the stuff I scan in the morning.
I should send you some stuff. There's a Tyler Boyer and some other folks are tied with some state representative in Arizona, and apparently there's a bunch of like millions and millions and millions of dollars that have been embezzled and bought political favors. And so one of the Charlie Kirk's final acts was to send an internal memo saying that he wanted a Doge-style internal audit done of TPUSA and all the shell companies, and then he turned up dead like 2 days later. Tyler Boyer appears to be implicated in that, and there's a whole bunch of financial irregularities with their Form 990s that they file with the IRS, and so that's happening. And then it seems like the TPUSA leadership has taken the opposite view of Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was like, I'm abandoning the pro-Israel cause. We're out of here. We're not doing this anymore. And it has pivoted.
I wish he could speak for himself, but I know there was certain indications, but I wish he was here to speak for himself. God.
Well, for sure. He shouldn't be dead. That's tragic. But we do know what he did say in the Signal group chat a couple of days before he died, was like, or maybe it was a day before. It was like I have no choice but to abandon the pro-Israel cause. And he publicly privately via text, and to also somebody associated with InfoWars. I can't remember the guy's name. Damn it, I wish I remembered it. But he had published something in August saying Charlie Kirk is afraid that he's going to be killed.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah, whatever his name is. Yeah.
Yeah, and the tweet is out there. It's from August, and it's like, Charlie Kirk is afraid that he's going to be killed for his stance, and so. There's a bunch of craziness going on. And I think that Israel is at the center of it. Nobody knows exactly what's going on, but I think it's going to move the needle. I feel this backlash. And like I said, I lament this, right? Because I think, Target.
Well, look, if it turns out that Israel is implicated in Charlie Kirk's assassination, that would be earth-shattering. You don't even need to say and other things, So if that's what the cards are, then that would be, how would I'd be like, whoa, like what the fuck, man? What else could you say?
And by the way, I'm not accusing them that.
Yeah,
either. It's like I think there's.
I hope it's not the case. But it ain't a good look.
It definitely raises eyebrows, and the fact that it's very weird that because I'm not super conspiratorial, but like it happened and. Netanyahu was the first person to acknowledge it publicly.
Yeah, right.
And then he went on TV like 6 times in the leading the days after that, being like, "We didn't kill him. I promise, we didn't kill him." I was like, "That's a weird thing to say." To just like proactively come out and say that,
Right. Well, look, the heat was on right away. So in fairness, there was an instant, and again, Netanyahu was the first to comment, but there was an instantaneous accusation. So it did build quickly.
For sure. And it's like, to sort of give the tinfoil hat crew their due, it's like, there's an entire wiki page of Israel state-sponsored assassinations, and it's very long. Like it is a very well-established thing. And the Mossad are absolutely ruthless, and they're very talk about effective. Look at the pager thing, right? Like these people set up companies that manufactured pagers and got explosives put. Like this is a very long game that they're playing, and they're very, very good at what they do. And executing something like this would be very simple for them to do, or like really anybody else. It could have been a lot of different actors.
Yeah, that's cool, right? It was such a poorly secured site.
But and the thing that's sort of very weird, and you want to get the conspiratorial stuff, like the parallels with like the JFK assassination with the magic bullet, and it's like all of a sudden Charlie Kirk's got a steel neck, and the doctors, it's a miracle, all this crazy stuff. Like I'm a gun guy, it's like a 30-06 bullet that did not hit Charlie Kirk, and like so there's and then the George Zinn guy that stood up and started throwing the diversion, like there's so much tied into this, and I think it's intentional. Whatever group orchestrated this, because I refuse to believe it's just one tranny furry kid with like that. That's bullshit. Like none of this makes any sense. Everyone.
My leading theory is that, not that I'm that deep into it, but he must have been part of some leftist, I hate to say, I guess, but yeah, some weird crew.
Sure, and it's hard to say because you know, like the
we better have a thorough investigation. Damn it.
Well, we won't. We're going to get bullshit. And that's another reason why Dan Bongino's getting drugged. But what we do know is that the FBI and the CIA have a long history, and I saw this after 9/11, of trying to bait people into doing things. And so there's clearly a potential avenue of
incitement or whatever.
Yeah, like have them, have Tyler be part of this sort of plan, right? Where he's kind of a patsy. Like he could have there's a million different ways this could have gone, but I refuse to believe this is just him orchestrating all this. There's too much weirdness, too much craziness going on with it. But ultimately, I don't think we're ever going to know. I think it's like the Epstein Files. Like we're just never. Maybe they'll be releasing the Charlie Kirk files in 50 years. Like I don't know. But
I can tell you is when I got married in November, it was a Orthodox wedding, and got really lucky. This rabbi was not a stranger. My wife's mom goes to him at high holidays when her father isn't attending, because her father doesn't like to go and not sit with his wife at an Orthodox temple. He'll go to the Reform. So rather, maybe when it's not a high holiday and she's going, she'll go to this other guy, and he's fantastic. And she knows him. So she convinced him to do our wedding, and I had like 4 or 5 Zooms with him and 1 in-person meeting in the 6 months prior, and it was, dude, like amazing, like mystical, and like not. His phrase was like, let my people choose. Let my people choose instead of let my people go, about what the rules are. So it's like totally like why behind. I'm sure it was Talmudic in many ways. The why behind the Jewish law, and it's like, wow, this is so fascinating. And the wedding itself was so perfect. He nailed it. It was so beautiful. Again, mystical. And I felt so proud. And it's like, that's what being Jewish is to me. And like, it's all good. My friends were there. None of them are Jews. And it was great. They were all like loving it. And some of them are, a little skeptical about the news and like what to think about Jewish. One of them is like, do Jewish people think they're supremacists? And I was like doing all the reading up to the wedding, and I go, it's actually because when you're a kid growing up in Hebrew school, the chosen people, you hear about that, but what does that really mean? And I'm like talking to AI the day before my wedding. What does it mean to be we're chosen? And it's basically saying, well, according to Jewish belief, there's basically a capacity to connect with God that the Jewish is unique to the Jewish soul, and that other souls don't have. And it's not a physical supremacy thing. It's not a material world supremacy thing. It's not a racist thing. To answer anyone who goes, what is that all about?
Yeah, that's one of the proponents of that is like Rabbi Schneerson, right? Isn't that one of the guys?
I saw the name. I know he's like a big figure, but I can't say that I even really know. But his name definitely came up in that conversation with Grok. But the final point was there that converting, about the conversion question, if a soul converts to Judaism, then according to the doctrine, it is understood that the soul had the inherent spark from the beginning, and it was always Jewish. And it's how they wrap that up. And in fact, retroactively, you become always Jewish. That soul was always Jewish. So anyone can join, anyone can convert. So that was interesting. But I'm proud fundamentally to be Jewish, and I certainly hope that there is no reason for me with the existence of a Jewish state and all the terrible complications of reality that come with existing in a state. It's kind of on a hand, kind of awful that it had to come to this in a sense, right? And so I don't take that people to imply that I regret that Israel exists, but I'm just saying it does create so many inherent tough issues to deal with of having a Jewish state. And I want to live in a world where, given the world we're in, I want to live in a world where that is something to be proud of, and period. So I don't know.
That's cool, man. Like I don't buy into the pride thing. Like that's one of those things
I
that
know.
rubs me the wrong way. Hold on. I don't mean Jewish pride. What I mean is
national.
pride. No, I mean pride in the unearned, anything that's unearned, meaning an accident of birth. I'm proud to be white. I'm proud to be Hispanic. I'm proud to be American. I'm like, hey man, you didn't choose that. That's not a skill. You didn't achieve anything. I feel like pride should seriously be reserved for one's accomplishments. And even with that, tentatively, because like you obviously didn't achieve all your accomplishments on your own. You had family, you had parents, you had teachers, you had people that share in your accomplishments. And so like for me, pride is always, I kind of recoil from that a little bit. I'm always like, especially national pride, racial pride, ethnic pride, anything like that for me is, it feels like, and I get it, like people want to be a part of have a group membership. I want to feel like I'm part of the tribe, and certainly you shouldn't be ashamed.
That's kind of more what I'm saying, but no, your point is well taken. And just talking for me, I'm kind of just talking about a baseline, not being ashamed, but no, it's a good point. And I sometimes have regretted over the years as I've come to grips with my political identity that like, man, I am so influenced by that indoctrination, putting my hand over my flag in grade school and going to the Hebrew school and going to the camps, like it or not. Wait a minute, you put it all in a blender. And when I was 16, I was much more of a skeptic. I'm happen to have a different view of life a bit now, not totally. And you just go, shit, that stuff from childhood really did play a role in how I think about things.
I mean, they wouldn't do it if it didn't, It's like, for me, I look back on it and I cringe, like the hand over the heart, and you chant to a fucking flag, and like you're 4 years old, you're 5 years old, you don't even know what you're saying, but you just repeat it. And when you repeat it in unison with the group, and if anybody chooses not to, they get attacked by the group. You ever see that? The kid that doesn't say the pledge and everyone starts to go after them. The teachers provide pressure. Like I've had to come to my kid's school and confront teachers who were pressuring my kids to say the pledge, Oh,
wow.
And so I look at that and I'm kind of like, this is creepy and weird, but obviously it works because it does. It embeds a module. And people have this national pride thing. And then when the Lee Greenwood song plays or the national anthem, everyone gets teary eyed and like that shit works, man. It gets down deep. That program.
Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, dude. It's a wild thing.
Yeah. And it's because like, here we are. We didn't kind of choose how we got here. We're in this system. We have a country. And so we might as well have a good one. We might as well have a strong one. But it's like, these are hard problems we're talking about. Social, societal level issues that are not necessary. Maybe in some ways they're getting easier by technology. Maybe they're not. But this is, it's intense, man. And to your point, and it's a good landing point, all we can do, certainly all of us citizens can do, is just control our immediate. And so I guess that's the takeaway, regardless of how people feel. It's like, what else can you do but local and vote for, I guess, who you believe in, right? I mean, you got to do that.
Or don't vote at all. Like I would say I'm with the majority. The majority of people don't vote. I'm not sure if people know that, but that is a fact. And I would like to encourage more people to get on that train, because my belief is that government doesn't care who you vote for. They just care that you vote. All they want is a consent. They want to have an ostensible thing to point at. It's like, we have a mandate. We have consent of everybody, even the people that didn't vote for the winning team. Like, well, they at least agreed to play the game, right? That's all they care about. And then once they have that sort of veneer of consent, then they can do everything else, and everything is justified beyond that. So I'm always kind of like, nope, I morally can't go along with this. I'm not consenting. So by not voting, I'm like, I'm registering my vote of saying, like, I don't agree to be governed. I don't agree to be ruled over. You can go fuck yourself. So I encourage others to at least consider that point of view.
But you would be open to, let's say you were successful and the veneer of consent was revoked and it all came tumbling down and we had to start from scratch. You would conceivably be open to some government, but none at all. So when you were talking about before, visualizing commerce, no guy with a gun telling me what to do, I was going to ask you, but is there a courthouse? Is there a police station?
Of course. Yeah. So that's the misconception. Private. So I would like to have, for example, they take police, right? I always like to bring up the George Floyd situation. It's like if you have a police firm that you're paying your money to voluntarily, and their job is essentially to protect you, and they start, choking out people on the side of the street or abusing people or doing whatever. In our current paradigm, you can't say, "Hey, excuse me, I'd like to cancel my service," and there's not another provider that I could go with. And policing is actually quite easy. Policing, if you break it down to the most fundamental level, it's like, I want myself and my family and my property protected. Full stop. I would much rather take a market provider who has competition. There might be 10 providers in my area. They all are scrapping for my dollars, and they want to provide the highest quality, the lowest cost service possible, using the most technology. And I might even be giving them access to my data in a way that I wouldn't trust the government with, right? Like take care of me, protect me, lowest cost possible, and I can fire you at any time and go with somebody else if you're not satisfying me. I think the market could be like that for everything, and I think law. You have a court. Well, think about this. People don't realize this. About 90% of all civil cases that are resolved through private arbitration. So they get sent to a private company. And so, like, a lot of these things with courts and policing, you can solve these problems through the market. And I think that there's nothing that government can provide that a market-based provider couldn't do cheaper and better. Like, I can't envision a world where it could be worse than what government provides as far as a violent monopoly. And like you have a complete removal of choice as a U.S. citizen. Like, you're just stuck with whatever shitty justice system or policing. Which, by the way, Supreme Court's rule: police have no duty to protect you. So we have police that ostensibly are like, we're here to serve and protect, but you don't even have to protect under the law.
Worst of all worlds.
Worst of all worlds. Yeah. The worst quality, the most expensive, and you're not even getting the thing that you're supposed to be getting from the service. Like, how can it be worse? I'm like, hey, maybe we try the free market. It can't. That's my slogan. Can't be worse. Let's try it.
Wow. That's amazing, man. Well, I wonder why you said, when I started off by saying aiming up is about controlling yourself and your environment, because ultimately you want anarchy, anarcho-capitalism.
Not anarcho-capitalism. I don't even do ism, right? So I do want anarchy, meaning I don't want to be ruled over. I don't, because logically it doesn't follow. There's nothing in a government official that's different than me. Like, they don't have a higher claim on my life than I do.
So anarchy.
Right? And anarchy, yes, anarchy is just without rulers, right? That's all it is. It's free market. It's just open voluntary exchange between people. It's not complicated. And so I don't want to do isms. I don't like anarcho-capitalism or anarcho-socialism, or like, I'm actually cool with any of the anarcho systems, right? If you're a narco-communist, like whatever, I don't give a shit.
Consent-based.
Consent-based. If you want to, as a group.
So anarchy is the fundamental thing. Nothing else matters.
Exactly. It's just freedom. That's the thing. If people don't like that because they see anarchy, it's like they see like the Molotov cocktails and the black bloc people and like burning things. Like, that's not anarchy.
The new Leonardo DiCaprio movie.
Yeah, your farmer's market is anarchy.
Right.
Like that's what it is, right? So you don't need all of this government control. You're just like, hey, I got a stand here that sells fucking apples. You want to buy an apple? Give me this thing here, whatever, give me an ounce of silver, give me some sort of medium of exchange. We'll agree to exchange, and just people just freely trading. It's not scary, and most people realize it's not scary. But somehow, when you start thinking about like a world without government, people just lose their mind. It just short circuits their brain, and they just can't imagine how it could be that we don't have this shitty government that literally everybody complains about. Congress is like a 7% approval rating or something. Like everybody's unhappy with government, but nobody wants to consider an alternative, which I find bizarre, especially considering the technological advances. Maybe you could say back in the day, well, it wouldn't have worked for XYZ reasons. We have massive technological advances that have opened up ways that we could do things. Bitcoin, for example, or cryptocurrency in general, that was not an option, 100 years ago, but it is today. Right. And we can build Web 3.0 stuff on top of it, smart contracts. There's all these things that you could do that weren't available before. So, but people don't want to advance. We're like, we have always just an abundance of technology and ways we could do things. And we're like, well, let's just give that all to the government to run our lives and hope for the best. And it just seems insane to me. It's suicidal.
Well, one of the themes of this conversation has been, can technology get us out of the mess we're in, and what does that look like? And if anarchy is just freedom, well, that's a universe into itself. So what would free people do with enhanced capabilities? But it's always fascinating to talk about political philosophy. And I guess you could say that on one hand, I want to say Trump offers a unique opportunity to do the analysis and go, this is he's so interesting and unique and a spectacle. And he allows you to kind of analyze all this stuff. On the other hand, he's just another president, maybe you would say. So it's is he different in any way?
He's worse. Yeah, I think that his power grab has been something that's really scary for me. Is that I think that he saw from his first term mistakes that he thought he made and thought he could do more. And then this term, he's just basically said, "I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want," and he's doing it. Like if you would have ran on, we're just going to steal Greenland or we're going to take over Venezuela and just run the whole his entire base would have recoiled and he never would have been president, you know. And so I keep seeing this encroachment into more and more state power, and it's something that I think that's dangerous. And Republicans now are not thinking this through, because any power that's taken by the other party, as soon as it flips, it's going to be used against you by the other party next time, buddy. And it's going to be.
I think J.D. Vance, didn't he have a response to that by saying, "I don't buy that"? He said, "No, they've already done it. The left has already done it."
No, they haven't. And there's something called a precedent, right? Like you know what? You went to law school. Like there's a legal precedent. Once it's established, you can just keep going.
Decisis.
Yeah, and so I don't believe that any party is gonna. I see ratcheting and I see retribution, which scares me. So when like this is what scared me about Trump going in, is I knew it's like the woke people had gone way off the rails and they'd attacked all these people, and that's one of the reasons they liked Trump, because he was the fuck you guy.
Absolutely,
he was the guy that's gonna get them back, right? Well, guess what? If you ratchet it up and you're attacking the left like he's been doing, I mean, whatever. I mean, he is left, but whatever the Democrat left,
right?
The Democrats, when they get power, which they obviously will, like they're just going to ratchet it up to 11 next time. It's going to be a never-ending escalation, and the people are the ones who suffer, right? Because people realize, like, politicians don't suffer from any of this stuff. They're the ones that are making out like bandits in the background. We talked about this. These people like Ilhan Omar, who have gone from $100,000 net worth to 33 million in a couple of years. Like, these people are going to be rich. They're going to be taken care of. They got private security. They have not a problem in the world. All the problems roll down to the average people who are fighting each other, which is really what they want, which is another reason I don't like this ICE stuff, you know, because it's just another thing to keep people fighting with each other. Well, you know, the other Congress people and the president and everyone up there in the administration are just, you know, looting the treasury and making themselves rich. And we're all getting the negative consequences accruing to us.
Well, you bring, I think, facts. You certainly bring an informed perspective. I'm, you know, you're more informed than I am.
I don't buy that. You're so humble, dude. Like, you're as well informed as anybody.
No. I scan. No, on a surface level. I could like keep a combo going about any issue, but I don't dig deep, and that's my problem. So,
no, I think your problem here's my analysis of Brian, is that you don't have a core. Like, you don't have core principles. I think that you've been swimming in this, like, riding political waves. Maybe I'm left, maybe I'm right. I'm trying to find my identity, but it's not like you're not starting, like I said, from philosophy. There's no.
You're right. Well, you're right in a sense. I certainly.
Well, hold on a second.
What I will say is I feel less principle driven than I did even years ago when I didn't have an idea of what my political identity was. I feel more outcome driven. I do feel more outcome driven the older I get. And I certainly recognize the dangers in that. So I can't deny. So regardless of the veracity of anything you said tonight, I cannot deny the structural, the validity of the structural point you make about building an identity based on outcomes. It's that can be concerning.
Think about where you started your finding my political identity thing. It was based off of what you didn't like.
Correct.
Like, I encountered.
Correct. You're absolutely right about that. Obviously, I'm a humanist, and so that there is an inherent. Well, I do stand for general equality under the law, and they say, well, only if you're legal. Okay, MAGA, you know, but whatever. But so there are certain basic principles that I certainly adhere to, but Yeah, you're right.
And that's not a knock, right? Like, this is just my analysis, right? Like, but I like to encourage people. It's like, I think that at the core, this sort of the non-aggression principle is really useful from not only from like it's the right thing to do. Like, you shouldn't. I think most people are well aware. It's like, you shouldn't hit people, you shouldn't choke people, you shouldn't steal from people. But somehow that gets abstracted away when government does. Like, it becomes okay. There's a transmutation that occurs, and I'm trying to get people to sort of zoom back in and be like, actually, this is wrong, and it's important, right? Like the fact that these moral prescriptions that you can't do these sort of things, they actually matter in the real world, and we should all care about them. So I'm trying to bring people back to that sort of core and encourage people to consider.
You're doing a great job, and to just say to people, zoom out rather, and say, hey, look, you apply the non-aggression principle and this, that, this. Why the fudge, when it comes to how society is organized, do you abandon that principle? Just because it's so? And the answer is, well, I mean, we had the American history happened. We have government, and so you have to get through all of that. But to argue that it hasn't been a positive series of developments, government is it's a big thing to tackle, but it's very pure philosophically and in principles. And so starting from that base, there's a obvious purity to that, and that's attractive. So the constant debate, Dave Smith, doesn't he bring it up all the time in libertarianism, is how to navigate the principles and the pragmatism. And so he's a guy that tries to do that. And like I said, I really respect him, and I respect the point about principles. And it's well taken. There's no question. And that's what it's all about. Who's got the principles? Who's willing to trade them for what? Was it a good bargain? That's the world we're in.
Pretty much. And then what are you going to do in this world, right? I think this is something that libertarians do a terrible job at. They oftentimes get really deep on the principle, and they don't take care of what that means in the broader context. Meaning, like for myself, like we're building an off-grid compound in Tennessee, here in rural Tennessee, trying to just be self-sustaining in case shit hits the fan, being able to take care of oneself. COVID showed us that supply chains are incredibly brittle. They break down quickly, and then things go sideways. You need to take care of yourself. And libertarians spend more time arguing than they spend building most of the time. They do this autistic like purity testing, and we're going to talk about this edge case of like, like that Dave Smith and Liquid
It becomes mental masturbation.
Mental masturbation, and then you're not getting anything done. You're not building anything. You're not doing anything positive. Like I said, locus of control being central. Like, they're not doing it. They're so focused on some bullshit that doesn't matter, having arguments, dunking on other libertarians. And that's something that annoys me about libertarians, man. Like, we are a rough group, especially to each other. And I don't see a lot of building. There's some people that really stand out. Maj Touré is one of my favorite people on the planet, constantly building stuff, trying to do positive community outreach and live his principles. And a lot of people are just jokers online talking shit, and it's annoying, man. It's actually embarrassing sometimes to be sort of tied into that group.
Yeah, well, I hope one day that you are not on a guest on someone's podcast that belongs to that second group. No. Look, it's a bit of pleasure. I hope we can check in a couple of weeks, couple of months. I'd love to have you back and take your temperature, and hopefully have you saying, Brian, you ended up being right, man. I was too early. I was premature on my evaluation, and Trump had a master plan, and I'm sorry I doubted the Don. I don't think, as you alluded to, I don't think that's the conversation we're going to have. But I certainly hope.
Wait! But I will. If that is the case, I will do it. I'm a man of my word, and if I'm wrong, I will say I'm wrong after the fact. Unfortunately, I've been doing this a long time. I've been paying attention a long time, and my autistic pattern recognition is very finely tuned. So we'll see. If I'm wrong, I do. I hope everything goes well. I don't want anything bad for the country. I don't want anything bad for my friends and neighbors. I just see not good stuff on the horizon.
Right. Well, even if you're a diehard Trump guy like I've become, you can still say, well, there's a lot of balls in the air right now. And so there is some hoping and some finger crossing that we have to do, even if you take the most optimistic view. So, and I am, and that's where I currently am. I'm, people say, oh, it's sunk fallacy. And like, obviously there's, you could obviously make that argument, a compelling argument for that, but it's like, no, I'm not quite at sunk fallacy. Give me a year. Give me 18 months to really feel this thing out, and maybe even longer, because frankly, it wasn't even till the very end of Biden's term that I was like, I got sour. So I take my time. So we'll talk well before then, and we'll see where we're at.
Awesome. Well, it's always a pleasure, man. You're one of my favorite people. I love you, dude. Like, don't agree all the time, but you're always a respectful person. You're somebody who thinks about things pretty carefully, and you're open to changing your mind, which is a skill that a lot of people don't possess. So respect to you a ton, brother.
Thank you so much. I love you too, really. And you're such a great guy. And I hope that I always stay that way. You know, I hope I can always. I hope I never change that, lose that. So.
Yes, sir.
Right on, man. Have a great night. Thanks for doing this.
You too. Bye-bye.
Later on.